Alrighty, this is going to be a full time lapse tutorial over how to do a custom skin mesh for Mortal Kombat 1. The process is actually pretty simple, but I do highly recommend that you have some experience in Blender. If you've never touched Blender in your life, or you're very unfamiliar with it, go into it, mess around, do some things, learn a little bit about it before you come back here, because it's going to be infinitely harder if you do not. You can try, but I would not recommend it. I will not be teaching how to use Blender. I will be going pretty fast on all the stuff within Blender, so I would highly recommend you do that. Everything else, though, I will cover. So let's get started. First things first, you're going to need a model that you want to put over the character, obviously. I recommend that if you're going to get a model for this and not have one made for you or making one yourself, make sure that the model that you're getting is rigged and is rigged very well. Because while you won't be using the original skeleton much, you will be using it to pose the character initially, so that way they are in the same state as the original model, the same pose as the original model. So for me, I'm going to be using, where is it? Oh, it's right here. I'm going to be using this Conan Akatsuki model by a side of Chidori. It was originally made for XPS, but we're going to be using that here today. We're going to be putting it over in Atara. So first I'm going to import the model. I highly recommend, if you're doing anime characters particularly, to go in DeviantArt. There's a lot of PMX and um, sometimes XNA Lara models or XPS models. These are super easy to deal with and they're usually rigged pretty well. So we're going to be exporting an XPS. I'm just going to go to my Kakashi folder and here it is. Original colors, generic item mesh. We're going to import it. You're going to need a couple of plugins for Blender. So again, if you don't know how to use Blender, I'm again back to that recommendation of knowing how to use Blender. The in this case, if I'm going to be using this XPS plugin, but for you if you're not using XPS or MMD, all you need is this PSK and PSA import tool right here. If you go to this thread, we're going to be referring to this thread a lot, but it is right here. This link right here will take you to this GitHub, and you're just going to download this and then install the plugin. But we're going to get rid of a couple of these meshes because we are not going to be using them. And those bones being there are fine. Yeah, that's good. So now that we have our original character put in, oh, these are two different meshes. All these being different meshes are not good. So we are just going to go ahead and merge all those. Did that mess with the, no, it did not mess with the texturing at all. Cool. So once you have your character in, I'm going to personally hide the bones for now. You're going to want to put in your character. So first, in order to do this, you're going to have to completely extract the skin. So to do that, you're going to need, we go back over to here, you're going to need, it says it right here, U model. So if you click on this link, go in, it'll give you UE viewer. This is what you're going to be wanting. So just click the download, it'll take you down here, download it, you're all good. Once you've extracted that, you should have a folder. Let me just go to my desktop. You should have a folder. Tools. UModel, you should have a folder that looks somewhat like this. You won't have the UModel export folder yet, but you'll have something like this. These three you won't have quite yet. But once you've, once you have these exported though, you're then going to download this. This is a modified version, essentially, of UModel that allows you to get into MK1 and extract its models. So you're going to download this, and then you're going to extract its contents into this folder. Once you've done that, you're going to click on UModel ACL 2.1.exe. Open it. This is what you're going to see. This directory is just your Mortal Kombat 1 directory. So wherever you have your Mortal Kombat 1 downloaded, for me it's in my C drive, Steam, Common, Mortal Kombat 1. Just click on the Mortal Kombat 1 folder, select folder. You're then going to override game detection into Unreal Engine 4 and Mortal Kombat 1. You're then going to turn off morph targets because Mortal Kombat 1 modding does not support that. And you're going to press OK. It's going to ask for an AES key. You're going to go back to this thread here, and it's going to be right here under set AES key. I said AES key, I mean. You're just going to copy all that, paste it right in there. Once you're done, you'll have this open. You should never be really messing with this engine folder, this MK12 folder, or this plugin folder. Everything you're going to want is going to be in this game folder. So if you're wanting to do DLC, here's Omni-Man. So Omni-Man will have all these other ones too. Don't worry about those. Worry about Omni-Man. Unless you're wanting a skin from one of these, but that's probably unlikely. But let's say if you wanted to do Omni-Man, here he is, go to skin, yada yada yada. But for us, we're going to be doing Natara. So that's going to be in disk, char, scroll down to whatever character you want. I'm doing Natara. And we're going to go to skin, select whatever skin you want. Basically, these are going to correlate to different skins that are available. So for Natara, that's going to be her base skin, her Union of Darkness skin, and her Union of Light skin. It'll also usually have story skins. So let's see if it's this one. If you double click on an asset, it'll just open it. Yeah, so this is her Temple of Kataravala. I think I said that right, skin. So obviously we can't use this in game yet, but eventually. If you get into this and you want to get back out, just press O. But we're going to just do it over the base mesh, this mesh right here. As you can see. And actually, before I dedicate to that, what's our cloth looking like? That's kind of a lot of cloth. Let's see what skin 2 looks like. That's going to matter here in a minute. Yeah, this one is a lot better. Okay. So we're going to do it over skin 2. So whatever skin you decide to do it over, you're going to select whatever it says. So for me, it's SK Natara skin 02 underscore A. Don't select the cloth. Don't select the SK class. Select this one. You're going to press export. Export it to wherever you want. So I'm just exporting it into that folder that you saw earlier, UModel export. And you don't need to mess with anything, just press OK. Once you have pressed OK, you will go back into Blender. And if you type import PSK, go to wherever that mesh is. So for me, it was over in that UModel export folder. You're going to go into mesh and it's going to be something like this. Click OK. Oh, I forgot. Important, make sure that you do not have scale down on this plugin, because if you do that, then your model is going to be super small and it's not going to work. So now that that's unselected, import to PSK. As we can see, we now have Natara, Coolio. We're going to select our original model. Select it right here. And we're gonna unhide it so I can scale it properly. We're just gonna scale her up to match roughly the same. This should be just fine. I'm gonna do it just a little bit higher actually. Roughly the same. So once you've done that, this is where, as I mentioned, having and I'm just gonna press this little eye icon to get rid of the Natara bones real quick. But this is where I mentioned that having a good mesh, a good rigged mesh is going to be really important and very useful. Because now what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to use these bones here to make Conan here have the exact same pose as Natara. So this is going to be a little bit tricky since Conan has all these big cloths, so it's going to be a little bit harder. But to do that, you're going to go into pose mode. So luckily, we have inverse kinematics on this. If you don't know what that means, again, refer to other tutorials and such, because it's not what this is about. But we're just going to get it. And I will say, it's not like incredibly important that it's like exactly. The closer that your model is to being exact, the more likely that it's going to look good. But like if I wouldn't spend unless I was doing like a commission or something, like trying to do this for money, I would not spend like hours going like really ham to make sure that everything's perfectly correct. For the most part, as long as everything is aligned decently well enough, you shouldn't have any issues. For a model like this, yeah, you're going to see a lot of this creasing. For a model like this in particular, it's a little bit harder because it just wasn't built for this, but still. Let's see, move that over a little bit. Okay. Let's grab this bone, rotate it like this. Rotate it on the y-axis a little bit so that we have that. Let's just move that to be like right there. And so like as you see, I'm not really worrying too much about it being like perfect. As long as it's basically there, that's gonna be more than fine. Oops, I pressed the wrong button. So something like that. It's in there. And what you can do if as you see my hand here in particular, it seems to be pretty well scaled to like the arm, but the hand itself isn't. In this case, I don't really think it's going to be a big issue, but if it is, you can always do that. Oh, that's looking funky. There we go. You can always scale just like the hand. So like, let's say if I did want to do that, I just grab this, scale it up a little bit, and boom. Now it's a bit closer to the original hand. And small scale adjustments like that won't really affect the model that much. But actually, I'm seeing that the arm is a little bit out of position. That's a bit better. Putting it more like that. Again, it's not super important that it's like exactly perfect, but having it close will definitely help. So we're going to do the same thing over to this arm. This part's definitely the most tedious process. I'm going to go back into wireframe mode to make this a bit easier. This part's definitely the most annoying, but it is super necessary. because if you don't do this correctly, your model is not going to animate well. It's pretty good. Rotate it on the y-axis so that our thumb is in the right spot. Something like that. Rotate it up a little bit. Rotate it. Grab it. Do something like that. Something like that. If I'm not talking a lot during this process, it's again because it's the most tedious one. So apologies if that's the case. Something like that. I think I'm gonna scale this hand a little bit. Something like that. Rotate it on the Y. And yeah, you'll find that a lot of the process is mostly the same. Just kind of doing the same thing over and over again. Definitely it's for a patient man, not an impatient man to do stuff like this. Make it more like that, so that way. Actually, let's rotate that down a little bit. I mean, that's probably going to be close enough. Close enough to get the point across. Not to sound like a broken record, but don't be too worried about having it perfect. Last thing I want is for anybody watching this to give up because they're seeing imperfections in the model. Especially on like the little fingers like this, it's really, the likelihood of it showing is not very large. With in-game, like most people that are going to be using the mod or yourself even probably won't even notice it if the fingers are a little bit messed up. Again, that's under the assumption that you're not trying to do this for money or anything. If you are, then I would be a lot more considerate of the person that is giving you their money. But yeah, it's pretty good. This looks kind of wacky, but that's just kind of what's going to happen when you have a model like this. Next is the feet. Like I said, having a good model like this is a model with inverse kinematics. If you don't know what that is, essentially it's allowing me to just move these bones and the other bones follow through. At a most basic level, that's what it does. And so because of that, it means that I don't have to go through and modify each of these bones individually to like make it look correct. But yeah, so that looks pretty good. Finally done with the pose mode. Great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to click onto the model itself, the mesh, and we're going to go down here to data. The reason why we're doing this is because you want to make sure that these shape keys have nothing in it. Again, if you're getting a model from DeviantArt or like a anime model or something like that, sometimes you'll have shape keys. These usually control facial expressions. We can't have those, so we're going to delete all of them. To do that, just here, delete all shape keys. Then you're going to come to the modifiers tab, click down, click apply. The reason why we're doing this is it's going to make it so that if we do anything with this model, it won't reset to its default position. Next, we're going to go into Natara. I'm going to click the Natara mesh, oh, actually, wait, before we do that, click on the Natara mesh. What you'll see is you have these materials. We're going to reassign these materials later, but we do not want the Natara mesh anymore. Now that we have it basically in the same spot, we don't need her. So we're going to go into edit mode, press A. It should already be all selected, but just in case, press A to select all the vertices, press the delete key, and then press vertices. And my Blender just crashed. Lovely. And I did not save that. I did not save that before, and that just crashed my Blender. Let's see if we can recover it. Nope, that is not the last session. That is for a different mod. Okay, lovely. Alright, I'm gonna pause the recording, and I will be back when I'm back to the same step. Alright, we're back. I've had to do some testing. This Natara model is weird. It's crashing my Blender for trying to delete its vertices, but we have another step we have to do anyway. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab these meshes. I just did something that I didn't show. In your original mesh, not the original mesh from the game, but the mesh that you're gonna put over, make sure it has no more vertice groups or vertex groups. Then you're gonna select your original model from the game, the bones from that model, and then your custom mesh. They're then gonna go into weight paint, click on weights, and click on transfer weights. Essentially what this does is this transfers, as you could probably gather, all the weights from the original bones to the custom mesh that you put in, using the original mesh from the game. Basically, it makes your animations work. So make sure you select source layers by name. This gives you all the bones instead of one. And I usually do nearest face vertex, but it probably doesn't matter too much if you do that or not. Now, what you'll notice is if we look, all of these are weight painted. And we can actually even, if we go back to object mode, quickly, I do recommend doing this. Going back to your U model, click on whatever character you have and then go to anim and select any of these animations that you want. I'm just going to select the victory animation. So we're just going to do victory roster. Select this asset, press export, press OK. And then what you can do now is you can select your Natara. If I select Natara here, import PSA, we go to where we have that animation, and then we put on dope sheet, action editor, click on her. Oh wait, real quick, I almost forgot. Add modifier, armature, to there. There we go. Now we'll see that our custom mesh, I'm gonna hide the Natara skin, but now our custom mesh is able to do the animations from the game. We have some oddities going on a little bit, and we'll get to fixing those here in a bit. But as you can see, already it looks pretty decent. So we're gonna Control Z to get back to where we have everything back in its default pose. Now, originally what I do typically is, as I mentioned, I'm going to save real quick before I show this. I would go to the original mesh, click on edit mode, select all of them, and then delete the vertices. But as you can see, that crashes my game, right? Not game, my Blender when I do that right now. So The reason why we'll do this, why I do this, I'll get to here in a second, but instead we're going to do something a little bit different. Instead, we're just going to delete the mesh entirely, but first we're going to copy the name. We're then going to rename this one into that. We're then going to go and make sure we're in object mode, click on your mesh, so right here, click on this armature right here, and we're going to press Control P, press Object Keep Transform. We're then just going to make sure we're moving that into the correct one, and then we can delete this other stuff. The reason why I typically do the merge mesh method instead is because it keeps the materials, which makes it a little bit easier for us. But for some reason, I'm not able to do that this time. So we're going to do a little bit of a different method. It doesn't change a whole lot, but you can just follow along with this one, and it will work the exact same. So now that we have a mesh that's somewhat animated, let's make it fully animated. So again, we're going to import the PSA so that we can see some of the issues that we have. So, oh yeah, didn't have it again for some reason. Let's save so that, let me make sure it does. So already I can tell that around the hands need a little bit of work. In particular, I'm probably just gonna set these to have basically no weight so that they don't do any of this weird stuff. We see a little bit of things happening with this, but however, that's typically just because of Blender and not because of the actual models. So I'm not going to worry about these little squiggly lines down here. But the big one that I was noticing was in the head. And that might have also just been a Blender thing. But it seemed like the eye was messing up a little bit. This left eye, but maybe not. But anyway, so to resolve some of these issues, this is going to be different depending on, make sure we have this modifier on there, and then I'll save. This is going to be different depending on your individual model and everything, exactly how you're going to fix it. But we're just going to fix mine up a little bit. So to do that, we're going to click on our object, go into weight paint. And I think for the cloak, the problem is this. I really don't want these to be weighted. So we're going to put the weight to 0. We're just going to kind of get rid of it. However, this is going to be kind of tedious. So I might skip over this part. Okay guys, we are back. I'm gonna have to redo this because I just realized that on my OBS I have the stop recording button or hotkey set to numpad 0, which I've been using to reorient my like orbit around my objects, which has been causing the recording to stop randomly, which means I'm gonna have to do some things. Essentially, what I was showcasing is the weight painting that you need to do. Before I was getting right into weight painting, that was weight painting everything to make it actually flow with the animation. I'm not going to show that because, again, this isn't a Blender tutorial or a rigging tutorial or anything like, or not like weight painting tutorial or anything like that. It's a tutorial on how to get your custom mesh into MK. So if you don't know how to weight paint or anything, there's multiple videos on YouTube on how to do it. But anyway, now we're getting into the weight painting that's like actually required. So there are 2 methods for us to hide the head within our custom meshes. Right now, we cannot remove the head from the files. Um, it's not possible as of right now for whatever reason. So what we're gonna do is we are going to um, hide the head. And there's two different methods we could do this. One of them is kind of bad, but I'm going to explain it anyway. You can take the head, basically the head, neck, and neck one bones, and you can hide them in the body to make it to where you can kind of more so guarantee that they won't show. The biggest problem with doing it this way is that in order for you to do it this way, you have to make sure that none of your mesh is weighted on those three bones, which means that if you want your head to move at all, you have to instead weight it on spine 3, which makes the head movements very stiff and you don't have any actual like neck movements. And it makes the animations look pretty bad in game. So instead, we're going to go with option number 2, which is to hide the head within the head of our custom mesh. And so basically, we're going to make our custom mesh's head bigger than the regular mesh. So to do that, first thing we're going to do is we're going to open UModel. Make sure you go to whatever character you're using. For me, it's Natara. Go into skin. No, not skin. It's up here. Face. Go to face. We're going to go 01 because that's going to be the one that we're using. And then we're going to go and select this SK Natara face. We're going to export it. And we're going to import that PSK into Blender. The nice thing about importing it like this is that you will see that the head, we're going to get rid of all these bones because it's annoying, but the head is in the exact same spot that it would be if the rest of the model was still here, which is going to make it a lot easier for us. So in this case, what we could really do is we could just grab this and we could probably just for some reason this is changing the face as well. But in this case, but like, yeah, we could probably, yeah, I'm not sure why that's taking the face with it. Unless I'm tripping. Am I tripping? I don't think I am. Oh, well, I shouldn't be using the same bones yet. Anyway, regardless, we could probably just scale some things up if we wanted. Or hell, we could probably scale them down. Weird. Wait. Give me a second. Yeah, this is very bizarre. I'm not sure why. Again, another thing that's never happened to me. It's never come with me when scaling this stuff. Very strange. So we're just gonna delete the face. Let's import the mesh because I'm not sure, but it looked like it's possible that our custom mesh is like way bigger. No, it's the same. It's just her head's really small. Very weird. All right, so what we're gonna do to fix this is we are going to essentially make the head like this, all this down here, way bigger. So to do that, what we're gonna do, we're gonna go into edit mode. As you can see, I've already gotten all the face. We're just gonna go ahead and unhide everything so that we can so that we can get more of the stuff. I'm gonna select. This would be a lot easier without the mesh there. Not the mesh, the cloak. Make this much simpler. If you don't know how to select the head and everything, pretty decently, pretty easily. Again, that's not a Blender tutorial, so I would recommend looking up some. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna size this up and see what happens. So we're gonna Control I, hide, select everything. We're just gonna scale it up a bit, something like that. In object mode, let's see how we look. We have kind of a monster head now. Probably don't want it to be quite that big. Yeah, that's a bit better. Let's import Natara, the Natara face, and see. Yeah, we can still see her. Yeah, it's really weird. It's really weird that this. Yeah, that's so bizarre. Anyway, okay, so I think we're gonna scale down our model a little bit, the entirety of it, something like that. Re-import the face. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. We're pretty close. So if I just scale it up by just a bit, something like that. Again, this is another oddity that I'm not sure why is happening. Typically speaking, I'm able to do this like without having to delete the face every time, but it's acting kind of really weird right now. I don't know if it's Natara's model that's done differently. Maybe it's done differently because they're taking the likeness of the one trick, but I'm not sure. It's pretty good. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna I don't really want to scale it any higher, so I might just move the mesh forward a little. Yeah, maybe not. I think that's gonna screw up animations if I do that. Oh, I'm pressing the wrong button. If I do that, and import the PSA. Yeah, it looks like the animations get fucked up if I do that, so we're not gonna do that. Yeah. Okay. So I guess we'll scale up the head just a little bit more. Not really my favorite option. Maybe I should just move the mesh forward a little bit. That might be what I do. This one, this one, kind of like the rest, is going to be a bit based on individual models. In fact, let's see how the PSA looks right now. Leaving it like this. Okay, so funnily enough, despite that, I still have to do this for... Okay, now this is getting really bizarre. Okay, there we go. So yeah, you can definitely see it. Which is not what we're wanting. Hmm. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna bring this all back so that we back here. And I'm just gonna move it. And hopefully, oh, but now our chin is like poking through there. But I might be able to scale it down a bit now. Seems like it. Let's see how the PSA looks now. Eh, it's mostly okay. It's not perfect, but what can you do? Yeah, the head is still in a really weird spot. Like, it's different from its idle. But overall, it's mostly okay. That's what we'll say. It's mostly okay. Good enough for me. Alright, so with that, we're going to delete the face. Now that we have the face, the head, done, we can continue. Again, yeah, that was a bit weird. Typically speaking, I don't know if like there's something going on with either one of the models I'm using. Typically speaking, you shouldn't have to delete that face every single time. You should be able to just swap back and forth until you have it correct. But for some reason, whenever I was scaling my custom mesh, I was scaling that. I don't know why. But anyway, so now that we've got all that, we're going to deal with materials. So within Mortal Kombat 1, you have a few different material types. This is normal for most game development. You have like normal um, and other texture types that I don't want to get into. But basically, we're going to only be using typically about two. So in this case, for this model, we have, it looks like three different textures that are in use. Um, so what we're going to want to do is we're going to find a way to consolidate this down to at least two. So first things first, we're just going to get all these materials themselves down to only three materials because we only have three textures. So we're going to go into edit mode. we're going to Alt H to unhide everything and click onto the viewport to stop selecting anything. We're going to go and select each of these materials that are using the same texture. Now that we've selected all of them, we're going to go to the first one and press Assign. Now we can delete all of the rest of these materials and with no consequences. Cool. We're going to do the same thing with these two eyes really quick. We're going to select both of them. I'm going to hit Assign. And now I can delete this one. So now we're down to 3 materials. You might be able to get this to work in game. You might. But I found that it's going to look really weird if you try. So I'm just going to try to consolidate this down to 2. So typically what I would do is I would try to condense these down to two different to only 2 different materials, but it's not really working the way I want. So we are going to not do that this time around. And opt for something different. That affects those. Yeah, we'll try. I'll show you what the issue is in game. Why I want this down to 2 materials, and I'll work on getting it down to 2 materials later. But anyway, back to what we were doing. I went on for that too long. I'm gonna cut that out. Okay. Back to what we were doing. Now that you have your materials, you want to make sure that every single one of these materials are named the same way as any of the materials in the original model. So in the original model, we're just going to re-import it. The original model, and this is the reason why I like merging the meshes instead, because you'll still have these models and their names, and then you can just replace it that way. It's a bit easier. But we don't have that option, so we're going to we're going to do this, go over to here, paste it. We're going to do the same thing for cloth. Come over here, paste it. We're going to do the same thing for metal. Come over here, paste it. My. Okay. So now that we've done that, we can get rid of this. We can get rid of this guy. And we should basically be good to start working in Unreal. Last thing we need to do is we need to make this armature, name that armature. That is important. If you don't do that, I found that sometimes it'll make it to where your animations won't work. So we're gonna save it. We're now gonna export this. So grab everything, go to Export, FBX. We're gonna export this just into whatever folder you like. I recommend for the name of the FBX, you copy the one of these over here, SK Natara Skin 02 or something like that, whatever it is for your character, because it'll make it easier whenever you import it into Unreal. We're going to check selected objects. This is just to make sure we're not getting anything we don't want. Uncheck bake animation, and then uncheck leaf bones. Then press export, and it should be exported. Now we're going to work in Unreal. So first you need to set up Unreal 4 MK1 modding. This part is pretty tricky. I'm gonna try to walk you through it without actually doing it myself because I've already done it. But basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna sign up for, you're gonna get your Epic account and you're going to link it to your GitHub. This way, again, I'm gonna link this thread in the description. It'll have all these links in it. It'll tell you how to do it. You're gonna do that first because then that's gonna give you access to this GitHub repository for 4.27 MK1 version 1. Once you have access to this, you're going to download the zip and the Z01. Once you have done that, if I go to my download folder, I think I still have it. Down here, yeah. Once you've done that, you're going to go into the zip, and you're going to you're going to extract this wherever you want. Doesn't matter. I've extracted mine into my, where did I extract mine actually? And my file explorer is not liking that, unfortunately. Yeah, it just crashed my file explorer. I do definitely recommend for this, where is it? Oh, I already closed it. Oh well. But for that zip to use like WinRAR or something, because Windows Explorers just doesn't like working with that zip file for some reason. But you're gonna go to wherever you have that extracted. Might be in my tools. Yeah, right here. You're gonna go into Engine. You're gonna go into, let's see. Actually, just go into Engine and then search an engine. Search like Unreal Editor. It should be one of these. Basically, you're looking for something that's along the lines of Unreal Editor.exe. Trying to find it. The tool. Let's see. Let's go because I think it's in the same spot. These other exes actually. Probably be easier if I do .exe. Yeah, here it is. Unreal Engine UE4 editor. That's why it wasn't showing up. We're going to open file location. Here we go. So you're going to go to the zip. You're going to go to Engine, Binaries, Win64, UE4 editor. You're going to double click it to open it. I'm not going to do it because I already have Unreal Engine 4 open, or this custom version of it. But whenever you open it, you should have something that says pick a project or something like that. You're going to make a new project. You're going to make sure you put the starter content to off, and you're going to name the project MK12. It says that here. Create a project called MK12. Now, once you have done that, if I go into my Unreal Engine, oh, that's my U model. I thought it was my Unreal Engine. Doesn't matter. Once you open this project for the first time, by the way, you should be able to just go to your Epic Games launcher, and it should just be right here. So I'm going to open it real quick, because this is where you're going to be packaging all your mods, which is not very hard, but if you don't know what you're doing, you'll run into a lot of issues. If you have a VR like I do, so you have Steam VR downloaded, you might notice that Steam VR comes up. You can just close that. It doesn't do anything. But anyway, now that we have Unreal Engine 4, you're going to want to make sure that you go into your project settings, go to packaging. Make sure you have use IO store checked, use pack file checked, and generate chunks checked. Then you are going to go into your editor preferences and you're going to make sure in your experimental tab that you have allow chunk ID assignments to be checked. Once you've done that, now you can actually start working within Unreal Engine. And you're going to want to set up your content exactly like I do. So make sure your top folder is disk right after content and to char. And then this is dependent on whatever character you're using. So I'm going to create a new folder for Natara. I spelled the name wrong. Make sure that whatever you're calling this is the exact same as it is in UModel. So for Natara, it's just her name, but for some characters, it's maybe a little bit funky. Take, for example, Rain is Rain Mage, and Shao Kahn is still Shao Kahn and not General Shao. But just make sure you're renaming it the exact same way. And that's true for all of us. So we're going to get rid of face, skin, O2. So our next folder is going to be skin. Then it's going to be O02. This is going to be whatever yours is. So for me, it's O02. For you, it might be 001 or 003. And here we're then going to have two folders. One of them is going to be, oh wait, no, we're going to have three folders in here. One of them is going to be mesh. One of them is going to be matte. And the other one's going to be texture. In our matte and texture folder, you're going to make another folder called set A. And then back in your Natara folder, you're going to make another folder called template. If you don't spell it wrong like me, I pressed F1 instead of F2. Template. A new folder inside that named mesh. And then you have your folder structure set up correctly. If you're ever having issues, make sure that this is set up exactly the same. Not even necessarily as mine, but exactly the same as it's set up in UModel. So if I pull up UModel here, you'll see that I have Natara, then I have skin, then I have O2, then I have mesh, and then I have matte and set A. Then I have texture and set A. And then in the Natara folder again, I have template, mesh. That's very important. Now that you have your file structure set up, you can start importing and doing what you need to do. So I typically like to import into the mesh folder. So we're going to go into mesh. We are going to open wherever our FBX is saved. So mine's right here. And you're going to bring it in. It's going to ask you for some of this stuff. Mine said, oh, I did not have the skeleton selected whenever I exported. That's important. Make sure you've done that. Going to cancel and re-import it. There we go. Once you have this folder, not folder, but screen, make sure you press import all. And that's going to give you your materials, your skeletal mesh, your physics asset, and your skeleton. You can delete the physics asset. The physics asset. My talking. You can delete that. You don't need it. You're going to put all your materials in the set A folder underneath material. And then you're going to put your skeleton in the template mesh folder right here. Now I already named my mesh within Blender, but if you have not, make sure that your mesh has the exact same name as your UModel mesh, as the mesh in UModel. So right here, the exact same name. Same thing with all the materials and the mesh, and the template, I mean. So for the template, we're going to change it to what it is in U model, which is SK Natara template skeleton. You can see that right here. Right here. And then we're going to make sure that we have all the materials correct within here. Let's go to mat. Yep, we have a body O2, a cloth O2, an O2 cloth, and an O2 metal. You don't, if you, it doesn't matter if you don't have all of them. You just have to make sure that the ones that you do have follow at least one of their names. Typically speaking, I recommend that your most important texture goes into the body material because that one usually displays the best. The other ones can be kind of hit or miss, especially since they're designed for other things. Number one priority should be body, second is cloth, and then the other two you should try to not use if you don't have to. But anyway, back to what we're doing. You're going to click on each one of these materials. Actually, first let's import our textures. I forgot. In here, you're going to want to import your textures. So for me, that's cloak, eyes, and mane. These can be PNGs or TGAs. Doesn't matter which one. And then you're going to assign that texture to its material. So to do that, you're going to go into the material. You're going to delete this param, drag out the base color, and put in texture. And it should be this texture sample right here. And then you're just going to click your texture. So for me, we're going to do, I'm pretty sure cloak was the body for me. I'm not sure. Let me check. Save that so that it shows up. Yep, I was right. And you're going to do the same thing for the other two. So cloth, I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to delete this, make it a texture sample. Make sure we have the right mesh. So for me, that's main, or not mesh, right texture. Showing up great. Do that in this last one. Texture. And we're gonna make it eyes. So now we can see, need to save it first. Our model has everything it needs, which is perfect. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go into our textures and we're gonna make sure that these are all named after textures within the U model folders. So you have these ones. Typically, I recommend that for as many of them as possible, you use the _D ones. So, for example, my mat, I have this set to body. So I'm going to make the cloak, because that's the texture that's set to that material, be this one. And rather than, what I recommend for getting these is to just copy the package path, rename your file, delete the .u asset, and just go back to where you find this parentheses, not parentheses, that slash, and then just delete the rest. Makes it so that you're not messing up the names at all. And then again, I recommend that if you're using a body material, to use a body texture, and a skin material, use a skin texture. So for this main, it's also a skin texture. So we're going to use D as well, because we can afford that. None of the textures can be named the same. Keep that in mind. And so for eyes, that's also skin. So we're just going to make it normal. So I'm just going to replace that with an N. So now we have all the textures named correctly, the materials named correctly, and the mesh named correctly, and the skeleton named correctly. And they're all in the right spots. Now we can actually start exporting our mod to put it in the game. So to do that, first thing we're going to do is you're going to make sure you have the mesh and set a texture folder selected so that you can select all of them. Right click and assign action or asset actions, assign to chunk. It's going to have this little pop-up. We're going to put in 100. This number can be anything. It just has to be above 23. I don't know if there's a max, if there's a cap, but just keep it somewhere in the hundreds and you'll be fine. Press OK. I'm going to save all just in case anything crashes or anything. And now when we're done, we're going to package the project. And actually real quick, just, I don't know if it actually affects anything, but make sure I would set your build configuration to shipping. You're going to get this pop-up. Just press continue. And then save this wherever you want to. I'm going to just save it in this folder. I typically delete that folder and just redo it rather than having it go over it. Because I'm paranoid, but it won't actually overwrite it. So we're going to give it a second to package. While it's doing that, make sure that you have a way to play mods onto your game, obviously. The best way is if we go to Nexus, actually I already have Nexus Mods open. Go to Nexus Mods, go over to popular all time, and I'll have this linked in the description, but MK12TTH mod loader. You're simply going to download this and follow the how to use right here. Really easy. But make sure you've done that. And so once you hear that little sound that just happened, that's how you know that we have successfully packaged. So we're going to open, I'm going to open where my pack folder is and where my mods are, which is going to be right here. So what you're going to do is you're going to have one folder that's where you just packaged your game. So for me, it's right here. And then you're going to go into your Steam, into your Mortal Kombat 1 folder, into MK12 content packs. And then you're going to go into your mods, your packaged folder, whatever it is. Go into MK12 content packs, and you'll see all of these. I have multiple pack chunks. You should only have six pack chunks, 3 zeros and 3 of whatever the number is that you put in. For me, that was 100. So we're going to rename it. The naming convention is always uppercase A underscore whatever it is. So I'm going to put Conan underscore P. Once you've done that, you're going to then copy it over to your pack folder over here. And once you're done, again, assuming that you have a way to play mods, you should be all done. So we're going to go and press play. Gonna wait for it to open, obviously. Any day now. I'm hoping the video is not coming out super low res, right? Not low res, but low frame rate right now because I'm doing so much stuff. If it is, I apologize for that. All right, the game is open. If your game crashes, it's probably because you did not have stuff set up correctly within Unreal Engine. So make sure you have all your folders and everything set up correctly. But we're going to go into Fighters. Come over to the Tara and make sure you're on the right palette or the right skin. And as you can see, I have successfully put the mesh over it. As I mentioned before, and this is the reason why I mentioned that I always prefer to have two materials. As you can see, a lot of the texture is really messed up. This is because the body default texture, so the body _D texture, is typically the best one to use. And while it's not like impossible to use the other ones, because they're designed for other things, it causes this weirdness. They're not designed to just show color. And so because of that, we're getting this weirdness. But as you can see, other than that, it is working completely fine. The head you can see a little bit, so that would be something that you would want to work in Blender again to try to fix. But we're just going to go, I'm just going to show that it's working completely in game. I'm going to fix up everything off screen. Because I don't want this video to be too terribly long. But I noticed that my game always gets like laggier with more of these. So I don't know if that's normal or whatnot, but as you can see, here's a couple of my other mods, the Kakashi and Guy mods. We come over to Natara.
The hunger.
As you can see, she is animating perfectly fine. Goes face Guy.
Zero fucks. Tremor. This guy is lit.
If it stops lagging, sorry for the low frame rates, but as you can see, they are animating the clash just fine. Go to the Wuxi Academy.
Well, that looks no crime of fashion.
Kind words won't save your life, Earthrealmer.
God, that voice acting. My game's super laggy right now, probably from the recording as well as having all the other stuff open right now. But it will show up here eventually. I think it's because of my memory. I only have 16 gigs of RAM, so it is the sounds. Any moment now. There we go. Okay, something's happening. Okay, nice. It's going so slow. It's probably because I'm recording as well. I've never had it go this slow before. There we go. Okay, we're getting some frames. My god, I'm so sorry about this. This is so... okay. Okay. We're seeing some gameplay. Not a lot. But I think you get the gist. She is in the game. My gosh. I can't play because of how laggy it is. There we go. But as you can see, it works just fine. Other than the textures being a little bit messed up. My gosh, it's so bad. The lag, okay. I still somehow got the run.
Take 2. Action.
I hope it's not coming off even worse in the recording. I wouldn't be surprised though. I've played a lot of guitar. Oh, that's good. There we go. My one combo I know. Oh, he just broke. He just broke and it lagged the entire game. There we go.
Finish him.
Oh, I didn't mean to do a fatality. That was completely by accident, I'm not gonna lie. You will. Oh. The game might have just crashed. Oh, no, it didn't. Yeah, one thing you'll notice is the. You will not have. Gore. Like, you won't have, like, heads ripping off or anything, because obviously. Gosh. This is. Yeah, as you see, it just split. If you could see for that one frame. It just split him in half. Yeah, there he is. There we go. Our frames are back. There we go. Yeah, as you can see, for fatalities, it will not perform exactly, but that's to be expected given the situation. All right, we're gonna get out of the game here. We're gonna let my PC rest. My God. But if you get into game and and maybe everything's working, but you realize that maybe this bone isn't weighted correctly, or maybe, like in my case, the head is still showing and you want to reposition everything so that the head is no longer showing, etc., etc. The way that I personally do it, and the way I recommend, is whenever you're finished in Blender again, just export it like normal. I typically export it over the last export, but that's also probably a bad habit of mine, considering that if your next iteration is actually worse, you might want to go back. But anyway, once you've exported it, I'm not going to do that here because I haven't made any changes. But essentially, once you've exported it, what I typically do is, unless you've changed the materials, unless that's one of the changes you made, what I do is I go into, oh my gosh, this is lagging so hard. Go over to Mesh, click on that folder. My Unreal Engine might crash. This is going so slow. Okay, there we go. We're getting somewhere. There we go. Go into your mesh folder, delete this file, and then re-import. It'll give you all the same stuff. Delete any of the materials unless you've changed them. If you've changed a material for some reason, then go ahead and replace it and do the same process. But typically speaking, most of the time, whenever you're changing, you're not going to be really changing the materials most of the time. So just get rid of them. And then get rid of the physics asset. Take the skeleton, copy and paste it in here. Copy the name of this skeleton, delete it, paste that name into your new skeleton. And then in your mesh, double click it so that you open up the mesh properties, and then just change these materials to point towards the materials that were already in the engine. And once you've done that, it's the same thing where you just take the mesh and the textures, you assign them a chunk, and then you'll package the game again, and then you'll see if it's been fixed. But that is essentially the process for adding a custom mesh mod into Mortal Kombat 1. There are a couple things in here that I didn't cover, mostly for lack of knowing how to do them myself entirely, and I will possibly make a video following up on how to do some of these things. But that is removing cloth. So what you'll notice whenever you export your mesh into MK1 is that your mesh might be there and it's replacing the body fine, but you might still have like a lot of dangly cloths or like stuff like that, like physics, like cloths that are still there. There is a way to get rid of those. I have not tried it yet though, so once I've tried it and I've confirmed how to do it, I will potentially make a follow-up. But for now, they're just there. Then the other thing is any other mods that like or like not any other mods, but like any other items that you want to replace, like gear. So in this case, I do plan on changing the Tar's wings to be the paper wings for Conan. And so once I've figured that out and get that, I'll potentially also make a follow-up for that. But as of right now, that's basically it. If any of what I just mentioned seems like a problem, there are a lot of models within MK1 that are pretty easy to do custom mesh mods over because they don't have a lot of that stuff. Good example is Johnny Cage. Johnny Cage has basically no cloth on him, so that won't show at all. And the only thing you have to worry about is his glasses if you don't want them, but you can also just disable glasses within the customization of Johnny Cage anyway. So he's a really good starter, as well as any other characters that just don't have any of that stuff. But anyway, with all that, I am going to end the video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to comment them. I'll potentially get to it. Lastly, I just want to remind everybody that if you are doing a custom mesh mod, make sure that you are always crediting whoever you got the model from, if it was not yourself. So for me, that's going to be, if I open it up here, my computer's having a rough day with all this stuff. There we go. For me, it's going to be this link right here, and the author, as soon as a side of Chidori, there he is, and the URL. But there he is right there as well. A side of Chidori. Make sure you're always crediting. Right, they put a lot of work into making these models and rigging them, so make sure you're doing that. But other than that, yeah, that's it. See ya.